We always need to be careful with what we say to people because some topics will be taboo to some and, of course, welcomed by others. What we are offended by may be the norm to the next person. In comms, it's not what we think that matters, it's what the target audience thinks. And some campaigns have to deal with this kind of subtlety every single day. One such campaign I spotted in India is about feminine hygiene. Now, you are watching this on a public channel, so we're not going to go into detail, of course, on that sort of thing, but we are going to talk about the strategy behind this kind of comms situation, because in some parts of India, the topic remains a very strict taboo. So what then can anyone learn, wherever you are in the world, when you get a situation like this that could divide or upset people? How do you approach that? Well, Sonali Sokhal is working in this space, and I thought this would be a really interesting one to look at. Welcome back, first of all, to the Public Relations Podcast. I am Richard Midson, and of course, you can find me every day on the PR Bytes newsletter, which you get at thepublicrelationspodcast.com. But let me introduce my guest now. Sonali, I was absolutely fascinated when I saw the space you were working in and the situation you're working in. I mean, first of all, just tell us the company you're working for and just give us a little idea about the campaigns that you're doing.
Yes, of course. So we work a lot in the consumer space as a company at Intelliquo. And Sirona, we've been working with for a year and a half. We started with, in fact, when we started, they had just acquired a vegan condom called Blue for women. Mainly geared towards women. I know condoms are worn by men, but it's a condom for women because it's non-allergenic. And our conversation was again addressed to women. And it was again a very challenging, very challenging campaign again.
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about this in a moment, definitely, yeah.
Sonona has been in the business for the past couple of years. They started off with a very interesting product which is called Pee Buddy in India, which is actually a little cone where women can stand and pee because we have a lot of issues for people when they're traveling with hygiene, etc. in toilets. And we have slowly moved ahead. And Sirona is one of the most pioneering companies when it comes to menstrual cups.
Okay.
There are almost, according to last research, almost 3.5 million menstruating women in India. That's on record, right? So the number would be significantly higher off record. And just imagine the amount of period waste that is generated for so many women menstruating. And Sirona has been one of the pioneering companies for menstrual cups.
So how did you kind of get involved in this space? Because, I mean, I don't know, did you know them or did they come to you and then you kind of go, oh gosh, how do we approach this? What was the situation where it first started?
We got connected to them, through another company that we work with. And when we met them, we realized that they're doing a lot of path-breaking work with not just with their product portfolio. That's one part of it. But also with their own communication strategy, with the way they talk to their consumer. And we are now talking to a new generation in India. We have a whole new Gen Z cohort of consumers who care about the environment, who want the best in terms of products, and who want the product they can identify.
So how did you actually approach this then? Because presumably they came to you and said, look, we want to market these products. You're like going, well, look, there's a huge market here that we need to reach somehow. We've got to communicate it somehow, but we've also got to do it in a sensitive way. So what was the process of you coming up with the strategy?
So see, one thing is the first few months, we've spent a lot of time on category education, right? We've done a lot of campaign on educating women on the correct use of menstrual hygiene products, which even a lot of urban women who are supposedly educated do not know how to use, right? We work very hard to talk to them about environmental impact and convert people from using sanitary napkins to menstrual cups. But when you're doing a larger campaign, you want women to identify with it. And what we realized is that we are only talking to women. But the human species is made of two genders.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? So you cannot have a period conversation and only address it to women because it is a human problem. Right.
So what was the kind of objective that they said they wanted to achieve then? Was it to market the products or change attitudes? Or I'm interested in how you approach the sort of campaign strategy behind it.
So in this particular campaign that we've spoken about, which was on men versus menstruation. I think what has happened in the past 2, 3 years in India or 5 years in India is there's been a lot of conversations on women and menstruation, right?
Yeah.
Women are coming ahead. They want to break taboos. There's the Red Dot campaign, which has even been powered by the UN. So there's a lot happening in terms of menstrual conversation. But the problem is that if you're going to leave men out of these conversations, then they will never have sensitivity to thing that impacts 50% of the population.
Of course.
World, right? This time we wanted to do a campaign addressed which was gender neutral, which was not going to just talk to only women. We wanted to pay attention to the fact that there is a lot of lack of knowledge among men, and women are constantly concerned about that. So
Yeah.
you how do you also make a brand a universal brand and not just a women's problem? It's
Yes.
not just women,
Yeah.
right? And this was the premise of the campaign called Men versus Menstruation. And I'm happy to deep dive into it if that's the
Please, yeah. I mean, I'm interested in kind of. So you had the goal of educating men, of educating the whole population about this. But I mean, you obviously did your research, or you understand these people you've got to persuade. And what sort of situation did you have? Because I'm guessing just by what we've talked about is that you probably got a lot of concern or people that didn't want to talk about it. So how did you get that over?
No, so surprisingly, younger men in India are okay to talk about it.
Right.
They may have little knowledge, but they are okay to talk about it because they're happy to mansplain periods to you as well. And we realized that they actually do that. When we did the campaign, we actually had a pain simulator which men wore, which mimicked period pain for them. And
Yeah.
I think then that they realized what women might be going through on a daily basis. And India has, I think, in many ways, in the past 2, 3 years, there's been a lot of conversation around this. Companies have started introducing menstrual leave, and there was a lot of hue and cry about that too, because people thought that women are getting special privileges because they menstruate, and men felt that they don't have to do all this. But then when they actually are asked questions about periods and they are asked to actually explain facts, or they go through something called a pain simulator, the reactions were extremely interesting and hilarious to a point, because suddenly you realize that men think they know everything about them, but they actually know very little. They have no idea what women actually go through on a monthly basis. And an average woman is going to menstruate for at least, I think, 20 years of her life minimum, every month, 5 days at least. So that's a lot of, trouble and sugar and the book.
So it sounds like you were able to. There's been a kind of attitude change then, by the sound of it, that has given the opportunity to be able to really sort of enhance this campaign. By the sound of that.
Yes. So the whole point is that why should a menstrual campaign only be about women?
Yeah.
We need to understand that the gender gap is only going to grow if you don't talk to men.
Yeah. But in terms of actually reaching people, you're trying to reach men. And, we were talking about sort of, for some people, there's a taboo. But it sounds like you've got a societal change here where you're able to actually reach younger men because they're interested. So what do you do about the older men or the people that feel like, oh, we just can't talk about this? What do you do there?
So see, societal change has historically always been brought about by the younger generation, right? Everywhere across.
Of course.
I think that even if some older men have missed the boat, we have a whole cohort of younger people. Gen Z is going to be a primary consumer in the next 5 years. I think it's going to be 40% consumption in the world is going to be taken over by Gen Z, right? And they are going to be the future, and they're the ones we need to talk to. I understand that older men may have certain reservations, but they also have daughters who are now growing up and going into the world. And the whole point is that I don't think any conversation on gender parity can achieve it.
Yeah. So you really, in a sense, you've got to kind of just cut your losses with that side and just basically say, look, these are the future. This is what's going to take over. So we've got to educate them now, by the sound of it. Yeah. Yeah.
You see, Gen Z women, our main consumers are younger women. They are not open to changing, or they're the ones who want to be educated about menstrual health. A lot of women write in. In fact, we recently had a campaign in women's colleges called the Rage Room, where we had so much participation from younger women, or like any other Rage Room concept, they were talking about all the taboos that they have to face. And I think it's time to, at some point, say,
Mm.
stop this generational trauma, stop this cultural stigma, and let's talk about it in a healthy way. Let's have an
Mm.
open conversation, Lovely.
So we talked about the sort of period pain simulator. What other things did you use in your campaign to get the message out there?
We did this with a whole bunch of influencers, and
Mhm.
surprisingly, initially we started out with women influencers, but a lot of men were very keen to also, repost these videos and, talk about it. And we
Right.
got fantastic response from the press because most of the major advertising media in the country picked up the campaign for World Menstrual Day. And they was very, it was one of those campaigns which got a lot of kudos from the press, and they all have spoken about the campaign. It's gone out there to into the whole lifestyle media. So the whole conversation is about let's talk about it.
It's grabbing attention, isn't it? I mean, it sounds like there's two key things. You had the menstrual day, you've got the societal change, and then you've got a group of influencers who are using these period pain simulators and talking about it, who are helping to do that. I mean, it's fascinating. I'm interested in this taboo thing. Just finally though, if you're talking about other people's campaigns around the world, if you've got someone listening and they're in any kind of society or situation where they're trying to promote something and they're concerned about a certain section of society being really worried about it, how would you approach that? I mean, it sounds like timing's been on your side, but how would you view it? What advice would you give them? Do you think?
So see, I think the whole point is you don't have to beat down other people. There is a concern context in India, unfortunately, with menstrual. We've had these age-old traditions about it, where it's considered unclean. Women are not allowed to enter the kitchen, etc. They used to have to sleep outside the house and have a ritual purification bath. That was maybe 2 generations ago, right?
Mhm.
Even if for women growing up in my generation, talking about periods was a taboo. You could not even say that you're on your period, right?
Mm.
So I think the whole point is that no one in any of our campaigns are we talking down to those cultural practices. Yeah, just saying let's normalize it. Let's just normalize the conversation. There is no approach of telling somebody, oh, you're wrong, your thought process,
Yeah.
or etc. No, that's not the point. The point is you start appealing to the people who want to talk about it. And then you realize that when there are 20 people who want to talk, are ready to talk about it, there's another 40 to 50 people who've been too afraid to talk about it. But when they see others speak up, they're
Yes.
ready to go up there.
Yeah.
I think that,
It's given them permission to speak, isn't it?
yes, so it's just about let's normalize this. Let's have a dual gender conversation on this. Let's not exclude men from this conversation because we are only two species. So if
Mm.
something affecting half the population, you can't just put it under a closet, right?
Mm.
And the more healthier conversation we have on women's health, the more sensitive we make people on it. I think that's where change starts happening because suddenly you realize that okay, your female colleague, if she says she's not feeling too good today and she's on her period, she's not faffing it, she's not a weakling, she's genuinely going through something bad. So that was the whole aim,
It's
that
normalizing the conversation. That sums it
normalize
up,
the
doesn't it?
conversation. And
Yeah.
yes, sensitive topics,
Yeah.
especially in a country as polarized as India, we have to approach them very light.
Mm. Listen, we are nearly out of time, so I've only got one more question. What do you think is the biggest challenge for comms coming up this year and the next couple of years? What do you think is the biggest things that comms people need to think
So
about?
this is a question me and my colleagues have had a lot. And I think the main point is there is no good way now to measure. Measurability is becoming a very big problem with for comms because earlier it was a very simple AVE. You were done with your AVE, you gave it to your clients and you said, okay, I've got you so much, value in
Hmm.
advertising. But I think today being able to say that okay, this is what we have done for your brand, it goes much more beyond because there's now social media, there's conversation, there is
Yeah.
uh, real life consumer touch point.
Yes.
So that's a very big challenge for comms to justify all the brilliant work they actually.
Mm. Yeah, it's coming up with measurement, isn't it? It's a common topic that keeps coming up. Sonali, just tell people where they can get hold of you, and then we must wrap up.
Well, I'm available on LinkedIn as Sonali Sokhal, same handle on Instagram. I'm always happy to have a conversation on comms.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and we will get you on again because this is a really interesting campaign, and I know it's ongoing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.